So we're going to talk about the opioid crisis here in America right now. And the truth is over 600,000 people since Purdue Pharma and other makers of drugs like Oxycontin, codeine, any opioid narcotic pain medication, since they released and approved those drugs, and they were heavily marketed, and the information was fraudulent that they brought those drugs to market with, meaning they brought fraudulent information, lied to the FDA and regulators about the addictive properties and potential of that drug, and then from there, they heavily marketed these drugs to American doctors, and American doctors were unable then to actually make informed decisions on whether to put their patients on these drugs or not. We're going to go through the research and the evidence and information regarding these pain medications. And now we have state senators, representatives passing bills in Tennessee that are protecting the pharmaceutical industry from lawsuits and being held criminally liable for what they've done to the American people. So we're going to be talking about that. I've recently went and spoke at a legislative event. It was an MCCY, so Mid-Cumberland Children and Youth. It was an opportunity to bring advocates for our children and the youth here in this region of Tennessee and bring them together with legislators in the same room. Sadly, out of all the legislators that could have been there, we only had 3 that showed up. It literally breaks my heart to think that our legislators in this state, and I don't know whether more would show up in other states, but it's like we're facing the worst epidemic. President Trump recently announced that it's a state of emergency in this nation right now. 600,000 people again. 600,000 people have lost their lives because of prescription drugs, prescription narcotics alone. But iatrogenic, what many people don't know is it goes beyond that. We have a real drug problem in this country right now. We take more than 80% of the world's narcotics, pain medications, opioids, and we only have 5% of the world's population. We take over 75%, practically, the world's total bulk of medications, any drug at all. We have a serious drug problem in this nation. Because what has happened is this nation has been sold a bill of lies that a pill, potion, and lotion is what's going to get you healthy and get you well. That as long as your symptom is no longer present and you don't feel your pain, you don't feel your symptom, or hey, look, your blood work looks better, your thyroid numbers are looking better because we're testing nothing but a hormone in your blood, but we're not actually getting you healthy. Hey, look, your cholesterol numbers are looking better. They're lower. Great. Now you're good. You're healthy. Like they told my dad, who had a heart attack 2 weeks after his cardiologist told him he was healthy. Folks, we've been lied to in this nation over and over and over and over again. How can we as a society, how can our legislators not even show up to an event for them, for advocates for our children in regards to this opioid drug crisis? How could they not take the time out of their days to be there and listen to the people who are literally on the front lines, helping people with these addictions, treating the infants that are born dependent on these drugs, and hear what we have to say as a community and what we're asking for them to do on a legislative level to change and stop this epidemic. Last week, just before the event, literally days before the event, I read an article I get sent from one of my friends. She sends me an article about 2 children. Rachel, that was you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sends me an article about 2, I think they're 18 years old or just seniors in high school or something. 2 young boys, young men, using heroin and fentanyl. And folks, don't judge the person who's using heroin right off the bat. Why don't you ask how they got into that situation? Because 80% of heroin users, new heroin users, 80% were first driven to heroin, were first taking Oxycontin or opioid pain medications, prescription. It's a prescription for addiction. That's what these drugs are, pure and simple. And there are safer and there are more effective alternatives. That we can stop this opioid epidemic if we just look at what is available to us. What has God created? What are the plant-based medicines that we should be using? If you're not able to tune in this entire episode, I will say this. I will discuss with you information in regards to CBD or hemp oil. And not all CBD is created equal. I'm looking at a lot of supplements out there on the shelves, a lot of supplements online that I can't find the testing for. I want to know how much THC is in there, how much CBG, how much CBD. I want to know the entire spectrum of cannabinoids that are in this tincture or this oil. I want to know how it's processed. I want to see the lab testing. That's what we do on our products every single time. We had to take down the site because we're trying to figure out how do we change the prices so frequently, because every single batch that the farmers here in Tennessee that produce this oil for my office that I provide for my community, every single batch is tested. Every single one of them. Because some conditions will respond better to a little bit more THC, still below the necessary levels to be legally sold in the United States and in the state of Tennessee. But it's full spectrum hemp oil. There's terpenes, there's many other cannabinoids and literally nutrients and anti-inflammatory products that come in a full spectrum rather than this isolated. Again, our society has gone towards, hey, it's CBD. It's not just CBD. You want the entire plant. We talk many times, and luckily nutrition is already heading there. That's whole food. It's the whole food plant-based. It's not all these extract and isolated nutrients. Isolated compounds may be beneficial for a period of time, but that's not what's best for our entire system. So that's why we carry this. I had a patient of mine literally tell me that after a gallbladder surgery, she's like, this stuff saved my life. It's a lifesaver. No medications, no pain meds. I've seen kids need to go through surgery for whatever reason. And instead of taking opioids like their doctors oftentimes will prescribe and give them for the acute pain after a surgery, they use hemp oil. And guess what? No narcotics. Cancer-related pain. They're now saying almost 20%, close to 20% or more of people going through chemotherapy and surgery-related or surgery for cancer are now becoming long-term. You can call it addiction or you can call it dependency. 1 in 5 people who take an opioid narcotic pain medication for more than 10 days, 10 days is all it took, and these people are addicted or dependent, whatever you want to call it. The chemical response in their brain, their nervous system, their body drives them towards withdrawal symptoms if they try and stop those drugs, or it drives them to wanting and needing more and more and more of that drug. And then when they can't get any more of it, they go to the cheaper substitute, heroin. And now they're cutting heroin on the streets with fentanyl. And it's not literally, if it was just heroin, those 2 boys would probably be here today. The fentanyl is what killed them. Folks, we've got to do something. And the reality is, to stop this opioid epidemic, we've got to stop exposure. The best way to prevent somebody from becoming addicted or dependent on these drugs is to never expose them to the drugs. There's a huge risk putting your child on those drugs just for a few days. I'm begging and pleading with the world right now in this country to stop just following the doctor's prescriptions and taking these drugs. Know the risks. Tell your doctor of the risks. And then report the medical physicians. Like the one who tried to convince one of my patients to start an opioid narcotic regimen for his back pain, which his pain came from an auto accident. We got him from an 8 out of 10 pain down at a 2 out of 10 pain literally in a few weeks. And then he goes in for a regular exam in his medical physician's office for work, and his physician literally was biased for the fact that he was seeing a chiropractor and says, you know what I want you to do? If you don't want to go to the chiropractor, here's an opioid. Here's a narcotic. Let me give you a prescription for that. This young man in his 20s it's almost like, lucky for him, he could have been the one addicted, but because he had watched a friend of his suffer with addiction to opioid narcotics and then die from an overdose, he refused that prescription. But if he was another person that never seen that happen, didn't know the serious risk, guess what? He could have been like, oh, doctor's giving me free drugs. I'll take it, go have my insurance fill it, pay for it. I'll take that, take a few for myself, sell it on the street. That doctor is a drug dealer. If he's encouraging somebody who's not asking, who's not in debilitating pain, if they're not asking in desperate need of that serious risk of that drug, if a doctor encourages you to take it, that's a drug dealer, that's not a doctor. Folks, we need to be turning these doctors in if they're encouraging you to take these drugs. So we're going to go through a lot of the stats and information. Do you want to see if you can get the cell phone running so I can see who's all online? You know, I went to the legislative meeting, and I'll tell you, there were 3, and I wanted to read off their names. So the representatives that were in attendance were Representative Mike Sparks, Representative Sam Whitson, and Senator Farrell Hales. So those are the 3 that took the time out of their schedules to be there at this event because they cared for our children. Am I saying that all the other ones didn't care? I don't know the circumstances why they weren't there, but the reality is when we have an opioid crisis in this nation right now and something seriously needs to be done before more and more children are born dependent and more children and young adults become addicted to this drug and when they lose their lives like those 2 young boys. One boy they're literally, when you read the story, it's like 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. I cast no judgment on either one, but when you watch one who had lost 2 of his classmates or his friends at an early age in life, and he goes into serious depression, and to combat the depression, he gets prescription medications, then starts using opioids, and it was the only thing that made him literally escape from reality. We need to help people recover, not help them escape reality. That boy needed Christian counseling. He needed more friends. He needed people to be there and pick him up when needed. So you got one end of the spectrum where he starts using it for purposes outside of what would be properly used. And then you got another one whose parents are only filling the prescriptions because he got his I think they said that he got his wisdom teeth removed. Then he gets he breaks his hand, and then he has to have a knee surgery for playing football. And he gets opioids over and over and over again, and then becomes addicted to those opioids. And by prescription for addiction, that boy is now gone because we're unwilling in this nation to look at something that's non-addictive and safer. I'll give you 2 answers out there that the current medical literature and research says right now has significant potential for pain relief and less addiction potential. Seriously less addiction potential. One is hemp oil, cannabis oil, and the other, and you can take cannabis oil without heating it, and it's not that you can heat any cannabis oil and have a psychoactive effect. You'd have to have higher THC amounts. But the reality is you can utilize a plant-based extract or plant-based medicine without addiction risk, without the psychogenic or psychoactive properties there. And then another one would be kratom. I dove into a bunch of research on kratom because when I read the research and they literally say less constipation, less side effects, less risk of respiratory distress and suppression. One of the major factors in causing people to die from opioids is respiratory depression. And kratom giving analgesic pain-relieving effects, energy stimulatory effects, less psychoactive effects than our currently used synthetic opioids on the market. And then something that has actually been used by millions of people. They're literally saying in the research that millions of people have reported being able to come off of opioid narcotic addiction, being able to come off of that because the withdrawal symptoms and the ability to wean themselves off. With synthetic opioids, they need more and more and more. And that addiction and that driver is so strong. but the use of kratom and different things able to bring them back down and lowering their doses and eventually being able to wean off with less risks than are currently used medications on the market. We're literally looking at this opioid epidemic and we're saying, hey, the drug company Purdue Pharma and others, they literally caused this problem. Let's ask them what drug they want to use to fix their problem they caused. Hey, you want to hey, you criminal who literally have killed 600 over 500,000 people by lying to regulators and officials and lying to medical physicians and the American people, getting people addicted, and you made billions and billions of dollars. Hey, do you want to help? You need to design another drug so that we can put people on that drug instead of this drug, and then that'll solve our problems. Big Pharma's answer and the medical community's answer is another drug. I want restoration and healing for people. Do I want people to have to take cannabis oil or kratom for the rest of their life? No, I don't want them to. I want them to be healed. My desire and what every physician's desire needs to be is full restoration and healing for their patients. Are they working towards that? If they're not, I'm begging and pleading with you. If you're somebody out there that is dealing with a health condition, seek the physician who's going to help you find and identify the underlying cause so that no medication is necessary. And you would actually be a part of being able to fight this epidemic if you would say, I'm not buying an aspirin, I'm not buying anything from Bayer, I'm not buying anything from Purdue Pharma, I won't take those drugs. I don't care if my insurance pays for it because I know my insurance company is going to then funnel money into the pockets of criminals who are killing people and have placed the love of money above the life of an individual. And you would be fighting this opioid epidemic. Because if we can literally cut the legs out from underneath the pharmaceutical industry by literally taking back and never giving them a dime or cent of our money, we would make a difference as a society and as a community. I'm begging people to start doing that. Because you want to know what? One of the legislators that got up at the end and spoke, he literally said, this guy's right. It's Big Pharma and corruption at its worst. But he says, we're not going to fix this with legislation. He's literally saying our government representatives, people that are supposed to represent the people of this nation, aren't doing it. They're literally protecting Big Pharma and criminals. They're literally taking blood money from doctors or pharmaceutical companies. That is blood money. The life and death of a person, the suffering of individuals, millions in this nation, and the death of hundreds of thousands is on every single dollar that has gone through the hands of Purdue Pharma and the big pharmaceutical companies making our opioids, and then they've given some of that to our representatives. So this representatives, and the man's name is Michael Sparks. It was a breath of fresh air to hear that man say to us, being honest, saying we're not going to fix this with legislation because there's too much money changing hands. He admitted it. He's not getting the big money from pharmaceuticals. And he literally says the only way we're going to combat this epidemic is in our communities. You've got to fight this. We've literally got to fight it in the trenches, on the streets, in our communities. But you want to know how to get drugs off our streets? The number one place, opioid, narcotic, pain medications, where's it coming from? The number one place, it's from our doctors. When a pharmacy or a pharmaceutical tech in my office as a patient, literally, their pharmacy won't fill the prescriptions for specific medical physicians in this community. Because why? Because they're nothing but pill pushers. Go let her know what somebody's at her door knocking. I hear you knocking, but you can't come in. All right, so guys, we've got to do something about this. I'm begging and pleading. I felt bad when I did the presentation because our PowerPoint, I couldn't have the clicker and I had to talk so fast and we were behind on time, so they knew that I had to I literally just got up there, I'm like, I'm just spewing my heart, my guts right all. I'm just saying what needs to be said. So when I was getting ready for it, thank God our Attorney General of Tennessee is going after big pharmaceutical companies and the distributors of the opioids. And they shouldn't go through the distributors, they should go after Purdue Pharma and the makers of these drugs, because they're the ones that lied to our medical physicians. You want to fix it, I literally should be able to say, here's the end to our drug crisis on every level. Doesn't matter what drug it is, opioids or anything. When the pharmaceutical companies lied about the safety of their Paxil and other antidepressant medications for children, lying about a 16-fold increased risk of suicide, guess what should have happened to that pharmaceutical industry? Completely destroyed. Financially, and every single CEO, every single pharmaceutical sales rep, every single person that knowingly took part in those lies, they should be in jail because they murdered a child. Folks, how is it not murder? How is it not? If they lied about the safety of something, knowing and hid that, knowing it's going to cause somebody to take their own life by suicide or kill somebody else. Lies that result in the death, unnecessary death of someone else, you're a murderer. Why don't we see it and say it like it is? And then I want to ask again for everybody out there that's suffering and on medications, please seek out plant-based, God-based medicines, godly men and women and physicians who are going to help you identify the underlying cause. Get your health back so that you don't need any more of those medications. And then you would no longer be funneling money. And it's not your fault. If you're suffering, God forbid that. I don't want that. I don't want that for you. I want you to be well. I want to help you. I want to help you get well so that you don't have to buy their drugs, pay them money, that then they can buy off our legislators and continue this wave of corruption that is literally devastating this nation. Number of opioid deaths in Tennessee alone, 1,094 in 2012. 2013, and this is drug overdoses. Guess what the majority is? Almost 1,200 solely from prescription drugs. 16. And the fueling of the non-opioid, non-prescription is the prescription. Look at this. Neonatal absentee syndrome, surveillance. That's a child being born because they're not addicted, but dependent. Because one would say that addiction is somewhat of a choice. Not always. We can't be casting so much judgment on the people that are using these drugs. And there's no appropriate use when there's something better. Like, I hate to even say it, when I listen to physicians and a doctor from Vanderbilt stand up there and say, if they're using it properly. Well, if they use it properly, and properly is what their doctor told them to do, what's the latest science saying? Literally, just released. Journal of Clinical Oncology, new persistent opioid use among patients with cancer after curative intent surgery. Surgery doesn't cure you. It removes a mass from your body. It doesn't get you well. And to tell a patient they're cured only because they cut part of their body off or out is a lie that will result in the further deterioration of that patient's health. Sorry, I had to point out that lie too. Guys, they can take it as intended, and because of the chemical responses in their brain, for that individual, appropriate use can lead to literally a driving force in their body that drives them to need and want more drugs, want more drugs, want more drugs. And that is not their fault. It's the fault of the medical community for not looking for the fact that cannabis oil was better than opioids. And I'm pointing at all the doctors that are sitting there saying, well, we don't know how to prescribe it. Microdoses. Some people need a drop. Some people need a whole dropper full. It's pretty simple. Because it's so safe, guess what? You could literally be like, take a little bit at a time. If you need a little bit more, take a little bit more. Because they're literally looking at the amount of CBD, you practically couldn't consume it. But fentanyl, a little bit of powder, a few grains of salt, literally that much, it'll kill you. That drug's on the market, FDA approved. And now, oh, we got to worry about cannabis, not enough research on it. That's what the medical doctors want to say, not enough research on it. There's more research on that than there was when Purdue Pharma got their drug on the market by their lies. I urge caution. One of the medical physicians at this event said, I urge caution when a representative asked about the use of medical marijuana. He goes, I'd have to. Why didn't you urge caution to every single medical physician out there when the FDA approved Oxycontin for 11-year-olds in 2015 after the explosion of this epidemic of opioid overdoses? Purdue Pharma comes to the FDA after they had already lied the first time and says, hey, look, we've got data that we did ourselves that says our drug is safe for 11-year-olds and you should be giving it to them. Why didn't the medical physicians and Vanderbilt's high-up doctors say, I urge caution, and I say no to that right there because they lied to us the first time and look where it got us in the worst drug epidemic in history. Urge caution on something that's been used for centuries, literally, as a plant-based medicine and has more research behind it than your darn opioids. And it's a fact, folks. Look at PubMed. Look at opioids. Look at the number of studies. And look at the number of times they had to lie about the safety. Neonatal absentee syndrome. Look what's happening. Oh, 2013, 14, 15, and 16. Nothing. It's going up. Continuing to slightly go up. 1,002 cases of NAS were reported in 2016. In the majority of those cases, 79.8%, at least one of the substances causing the drug dependency in these infants, these newborns, was prescribed to the mother by their health care provider, by their drug dealer. Again, I'll say it again. When I've got a pregnant patient, first trimester with back pain that comes in my office, and she's prescribed, literally immediately upon working with her OB, prescribed a narcotic and an antidepressant. Child's got risk of, from the antidepressant, learning disorders, drug dependency and drug addiction in later years, early on dependency upon birth, and then addiction afterwards. And then loss, fetal loss, because of the stress you place the mother and baby under by going on that drug and off that drug, because of the significant neurological effects that drug has. And she is told, so I bring up the truth to her. How dare I not, as a physician? I don't prescribe drugs, and I can't technically take people off drugs, but I can sure as well tell people the truth. Every time somebody gets in front of me, if you ever come in my office, here's your warning. You might hear the truth. I tell this young mother, soon-to-be mother, I go, I got to say something about the two drugs you're on. If you've been prescribed them, how long have you been taking them? Only a few days. Can you quit them? Please? Are you in agonizing, debilitating? Would you be in tears right now if you didn't have those drugs? No. Then why are you on them? Do you know the risks that poses to both you and your baby, your unborn child? And I'm literally pleading with her, and I'm knowing the risk that I'm taking, and the risk that I'm taking is losing a patient because she doesn't understand how all you trolls and all those people out there want to say, this is nothing but a chiropractor. What does he know? Seems like I know more than a medical physician. That mother should have never been given those drugs. And that's a fact. She wasn't in debilitating, agonizing, on the floor, crying pain, where it's literally like, okay, 1 in 5 people who take this drug are going to be addicted to it. So you sure you want to be addicted to something? You want to take that risk, 20% risk, if you take it over more than 10 days. I tell her the truth, she never comes back. All I can do is hope and pray that one adjustment got her completely out of pain. She never decided to come back again. That's all I can hope and pray for. But in my spirit and heart, what I feel may have happened is because she didn't understand. She probably went back to her doctor, called her doctor. Hey, I've got a chiropractor telling me that these opioid narcotics could really cause my baby some problems. Yeah, they can. According to the Tennessee Department of Health, 1,000 babies every year in the... Gosh, this shouldn't happen. Folks, in my state is the second in the nation. Woohoo! What's up? No. If you're not first, you're last. I just watched Talladega Nights, sorry. What does that mean? You can be second, third, shoot, you could be fifth. First or last doesn't make any sense. But we're second in the nation. Tennessee, woohoo! 7.8 million prescriptions. That's 1.18 prescriptions for every man, woman, and child. Folks, we've got a bunch of drug dealers in Tennessee. Simple as that. And we got legislators pushing bills through that are going to protect the drug companies and reduce the DEA's ability to go after them. The DEA can say, hey, let's put some warnings out in Kratom. Nobody's really died yet from Kratom alone. Not a single case of Kratom causing a single death by itself. Tons of opioids causing it, but hey, that's FDA approved, so let's keep it on the market and let's not warn people about that. We just don't want them to be used in all these other drugs. Millions of people have been effectively treating themselves for opioid narcotic addiction and getting off of them. Several videos, I get people chiming in. If you've ever been in that situation, if you feel like sharing it, share it with the rest of the people so they can see that there is a plant-based medicine that the research shows is safe and effective. The U.S. has roughly 5%, 80% of the world's narcotics. Reframing the opioid epidemic as a national emergency. Again, 600,000 people, and we expect, and this is the thing, if they are expecting 180,000 is what they expect to be dead by 2000, additional dead bodies because of Big Pharma. The body count keeps rising. If they're expecting tens of thousands, literally 50,000 next year, and then 180,000 from now until 2020 will be dead. Are you okay with that number? I'm not. If I get one more patient that comes through my door and tells me that their doctor or their drug dealer was encouraging them to start an opioid narcotic regimen when they weren't in just serious, debilitating, life-ending pain where it took anything necessary to get them out of pain, and they'd already tried hemp oil and getting adjusted for that. But the reality is I don't. Folks, we need to turn these doctors in and ask our police. You know what the legislator said? He went outside the drug dealer office in his town, prayed over it, and within a year and a half, roughly, that place was shut down, and the owner of that establishment was in jail for selling children and pumping opioids and synthetic drugs onto the black market. We got pharmacies in our community, I guarantee it, doing this. And another problem is, when people try to do the right thing, what happens? Don't try and do the right thing if you want to keep your job at a pharmacy. I've got a PA, physician's assistant, medical physician sitting there working with his patients, working with the system, looking at how many times is this individual asking for this opioid prescription, how many times have they filled this prescription over the last 21 days? 3 times. He wasn't going to be the third. He said, no, there's something wrong. I'm not giving you the drug. After he did what he's supposed to do, guess what? The very next day, this man in my community, a patient of mine, who had literally gotten completely out of pain, doing phenomenal now because I was able to correct his spine, so we helped him avoid a surgery for his spine. He didn't want the drugs in the first place, so he didn't take drugs. And then when he's doing his due diligence and doing what's right for our society, for our community, and for that individual, in fact, and saying, no, I can't give you another prescription. You've already filled it twice in the last 21 days for an entire month's supply. Something's wrong here. He did right by that person. He did the right thing. He gets a termination letter on his desk the next morning. Thank God that pain clinic is now shut down, and more of them need to be. Again, opioids are among the most heavily prescribed pharmaceuticals, and they are highly addictive. 80% of new heroin users came from prescription opioids. Opioid overdose. You want to know where the gateway is? You know how they used to say marijuana is the gateway drug? Well, it hasn't been, because guess what? The majority of marijuana smokers won't use opioids. That's what the research says. I mean, literally, I want to be like, who's making up this junk? The majority of people smoking don't want, and I'm not making fun, I don't smoke. I'm sure I baffled a lot of you. What? He doesn't? No way. Dude, it makes me really paranoid. I'm like, all I can remember is down in the basement, and my mom upstairs like, she knows, oh my God, she knows. I'm gonna get caught. What am I gonna do? I can't go to sleep, I'm spinning. It won't stop. I didn't inhale. Wait, that wouldn't make sense then. Bill Clinton used that excuse. I said Bill Clinton when he was like, I didn't inhale. I was like, why were you smoking then? That's stupid. I'm not perfect. I'm not an angel. I'm a sinner. All right? I'm just trying to do the right thing. Opioid overdose deaths increased 156% from 21,088 in 2010 to 33,091 in 2015. Overdose deaths in teenagers increased 19% from 2014 to 2015 to 772. $92 billion, folks. $92 billion is the economic impact that this opioid crisis had on our nation. Now think about this. Guess who's funding the roughly $200,000 it takes to treat the majority of NAS cases, these neonatal absentee syndrome? So just those alone, folks. Where are my PowerPoint? There we go. Just those alone, roughly $200,000. And the majority of the money going to treat these is government subsidized insurances, which is not government money. It's not like they're printing new. Occasionally they do that, which is kind of ridiculous. But the reality is this, it's our taxpayer money. We pay back into the hands of the pharmaceutical medical community to put these kids and bring them off of that dependency through more medications and more drugs. We hand more money to the drug industry through our tax dollars. And that burden is on our shoulders. Meanwhile, Big Pharma and everybody else, they get fined $635 million was the biggest fine. $635 million. Sounds like a lot of money to you and me, right? That is. It's pennies to them. When you make roughly $10 billion a year on this class of medications, guess what? Now it's a bad boy. You're really bad. You shouldn't do that. Stop lying to us all the time. We really don't like it when you do that because you're killing people. But, you know, give us a little bit. And the government's like, give us a little bit of that money. We'll share in it. We'll make the public. We'll make it appear. We'll do a media outlet. You know, hey, media, guess what? Big Pharma got sued for $10 million. We really got it. Shocked it to them. Oh, wait, they made $1.8 billion last year. 10 million? 10 million's all you... Like, seriously. How can anybody think that is a punishment? If I took my child, and I give this crazy example that would probably never happen in our life, he stole a box of candy bars, entire box. All right? So there's his $10 billion, right? That he bought. He stole with lies. All right? So he got this box of candy bars, and I say, hey, boy, get over here with that box of candy bars. Give me 2 of them. You're under arrest for stealing from the candy shop. Give me 2 candy bars. Guess what I just taught my son? It pays to steal. It pays to break the law. You don't really get a punishment because I still got a bunch of candy bars. I just shared 2 of them with my dad. No big deal, right? Who in their, like, tack hammer forehead, like now, who thinks a few $1 million when they're making billions is a punishment? They're going to keep committing their crimes. 92 billion. I mean, that's massive amount. I mean, unreal. Law enforcement needs to start targeting illicit drug dealers, doctors, and unethical physicians. That's drug dealers. Don't call them unethical. An unethical, man, let's not call him drug dealer. Let's call him an unethical physician because they deserve respect, even though they're literally causing the worst drug epidemic in history. If they're doing something, what's the difference? What is the difference? One's wearing a white coat, one's wearing a black hoodie. Oh, really? That's a drug dealer on the street. That's a black hoodie guy, you know, he's a thug. Man, he's a drug dealer. Unethical physician over here killing more people, though. He's a drug dealer. They don't deserve no respect from anybody. If they're a part of this epidemic and this problem, they deserve no respect. They deserve jail time. Marshalling the FDA, I wanted to make sure that all our legislators actually knew that the FDA does not have recall authority for drug products, but in urgent situations, they may request urgent situations. People are dying. It's urgent that we actually get the drug off the market. Let's request. Hey, Purdue Pharma. Hey, guys, you guys want to take your drug off the market? I know that we approved it, and you had lied about that study, and that data you gave us really wasn't honest. So you hid the fact that you were going to kill people, but we already brushed that under the rug, and you paid us off for that. So we haven't. But we want to request that you take some of these drugs off. Request, please, pretty please. Like seriously, what in the world are we doing here, folks? The Joint Commission on the Opioid Epidemic. What did the Joint Commission say? Let's read about the Joint Commission. Were a bold attempt. Oops, what? The Joint Commission's 2000 standards for pain management were a bold attempt to address widespread underassessment and undertreatment of pain. So they went from saying, if you're in pain, that's common, that's normal for these situations when your body's telling you have a problem, so if you can deal with it, just kind of work through it. Oh, now it's, how much pain are you in? Ooh, don't worry, you're not going to need to be in pain. We're going to give you something. We're going to give you an addiction. You won't be in pain, but you'll suffer psychologically, emotionally, and financially a whole lot more for the rest of your life. But we're glad that, you know, those few moments in the hospital, we're glad you didn't suffer in pain then. They lied to the physicians. They literally would say if one physician wasn't prescribing enough medications, with the drug companies even knew which doctors were prescribing more medications, and then sent regulatory boards after physicians to literally harass them until they prescribed more drugs. Purdue Pharma, the manufacturer of OxyContin, was one of 2 drug companies that provided funding for the Joint Commission's pain management educational programs. Pain management educational programs. Purdue also distributed videos and monographs about pain management on the Joint Commission's website. Hey, if you got pain, you got to get an opioid. I don't know how this jingle would go, but it's got to go something like stupid. I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I know sometimes I'm like, God, this guy always frustrated. Well, I mean, when you see evil taking place in the world, I don't know how you're not frustrated. It's really bad. It's really bad. When you have one of my best friends, a young man who's now away at chiropractic school, will never take a drug again in his life. When you got a young man who had to watch his brother going in and out, in and out, in and out of rehab, in and out, in and out, in and out of jail. Because the darn medical doctors and medical system, and I always harp on you because I'm just begging and pleading for you to do something. Do something that's right for people. Now, I will say, I've got a great doctor that I'll refer to. Guess what he said to one of my patients? They caught the flu. He said, take elderberry, not Tamiflu that causes you to have psychoactive effects and then die and commit suicide. It doesn't help you at all, actually. Tamiflu does nothing, folks. He took the elderberry tincture, and guess what? And his medical physician encouraged him to that. Let's all give a round of applause. Yay, that is awesome. That's what we need more of, and that's what I'm advocating for. I'm harping on whether it be a large number or a few. Those that are doing evil and wrong and not doing what's best for their patients, they need to be weeded out. They literally lied to doctors. Fourth, by making pain control a patient's rights issue, the Joint Commission then took the treatment of pain over clinical investigation of the causes. They said, treat the symptoms, don't find out why they're in pain and fix that. Treat the symptoms, get them addicted. Purdue Pharma pushing, literally manipulating the minds of physicians, thinking, don't figure out why they're in pain, just ask them if they are in pain. Hey, you in pain? Oh, good, here's a narcotic. Lifetime patient, no. Joint Commission did not follow principles of evidence-based medicine as enacting its pain management guidelines and did little to prevent and decrease the opioid crisis once the epidemic began. And again, folks, these are Journal of American Medical Association articles. Like others, this is a medical physician, Dr. David Baker, MD, MPH. Like others, we were unaware that the science behind their claims and advice of experts in the field were erroneous. Even the FDA accepted Purdue Pharma's claims, approving labeling, saying that iatrogenic addiction was, quote, very rare, and the delayed absorption of OxyContin reduced the abusive liability of the drug. Folks, again, going back to stop this pop-up. All right. You want to fix the drug crisis in America? Simple. You lie about the safety or effectiveness of your drug. You lied. You committed fraud. You don't get to ever sell a drug again in your life because you can't be trusted. Meanwhile, here's the way U.S. FDA and government does it. Okay, so Purdue Pharma, you lied about it first time. Okay, you got a lot of people addicted. Hey, what's your next drug? Oh yeah, you got all these lower opioids, but put them on those. Okay, now what else you got? What else you got? What kind of research can you come out with next? Oh, oh man, your research now says it's safe for 11-year-olds. Okay, good. We can give it 11 years. We'll approve it. I'm upon your word for it. You sure you're not lying to us this time again? You did the last time. You sure? Okay. Okay, we trust you again. Oh, this is so amazing. They lied once, nothing they're not going to do. Wait, they lied like 50 million bajillion times, and they're still doing it. But I'm going to trust them again. It's your fault. It's like, but people need to realize this, and you never wish this on anybody, but we need to realize, our legislators need to realize, you know what, one of the legislators, they were there because their family members, their children had become addicted. So they had a reason to be there. Never hope, never pray for it to happen to them or their family, because that is a child, that is a life, that is a child of God. Their children are. But it's going to happen to some of our legislators that are in the pockets that Big Pharma is pouring money into their pockets. They're receiving drug money. They're receiving criminal money. They're working for criminals and working with criminals. They're receiving money from criminals. They are criminals. They pleaded guilty to lying. So it's a true statement. If they've received money from Purdue Pharma, who's admitted to lying to our physicians and lying to the FDA about the safety of their drugs and committed criminal acts and killed people as a result of that, they're criminals, they're murderers. So that's the definition of them now. We know that. They pleaded guilty. Now, turn around. They gave money to our representatives and our senators, our government representatives. So who'd they take money from? A criminal. I would beg, I would implore, please, if you're a government representative, never take money from criminals. I think that's a pretty good idea to stop doing, right? Raise your hand if you agree with me. Give me like a thumbs up. That'll be like a raise your hand on Facebook. Give me a thumbs up if you believe that senators and representatives, that criminals should never be allowed to give money to our representatives and our government officials. I feel like that would be a good step in the right direction in this nation. But it is going to happen to some of their children that they will fall victim to this Big Pharma prescription for addiction. I pray it never does. Again, pediatric patients can get it. There's the Sackler family right there. 19th richest family in the world, $13 billion in money. Blood money. And this is what I wanted to point out. We don't have just an addiction issue with opioids. We have an addiction, or Big Pharma's addiction to fraud and lies, and their love of money, their addiction to more money, more money, more money. I don't care about the lives that we lost. And I'll read you a statement. It is unreal. Blood money, Bayer's inventory of HIV-contaminated blood products and their third world hemophiliacs. Folks, it wasn't just third world hemophiliacs. 2014 is finally Came out in PubMed, but the reality is you can just YouTube it. The video is unreal. Rat of the week. Rat of the week, folks. Watch it. Bayer Corporation knew for sure that their drug, Factor Aid, for hemophiliacs, for children, they knew it was tainted or contaminated or purposefully made that way, maybe. Guess what? They made money on people treating them for HIV after that fact. Do you think they just said, you know what, we're just going to make it and we're not going to care that it's contaminated with HIV? You know, oops, we got blood from infected people. You know, who would have known that it was going to be in the drug now? I'm a scientist. There's no way we get blood from HIV-infected individuals. I'm a really bright scientist. I work for a drug company. It's cool. Man, I'm so smart. I got a big degree. I ain't no chiropractor. No way. So I know that I can give people HIV and they'll be just fine. It'll be better for them, right? I mean, I just laugh when people so you think the drug companies like, oh, this research and drug companies, like they're just, they're going to do what's right for people. They infected children with HIV on purpose. There's nothing more low and evil than that. I can't imagine. Kids died, family members caught the disease, died, and drug companies profited on them as they died. And then our government, read this, folks, Bayer's Cutter Laboratories, and folks, you might want to actually look up the Cutter incident. Give me a comment there at all my friends. Guess what? Cutter Laboratories, what else did they do back in the first polio vaccine? What'd they do? Anybody know? What did Cutter Laboratories, the Cutter incident, what happened? What happened? Tell me. I ain't gonna give you away the secret just yet. The suspense is killing me. No, it was actually the HIV that came from the hemophiliac medication that was tainted because the drug company, Cutter Laboratories, knew it. Anyways, here we go. Cutter misrepresented the results of their own research and sold the contaminated AHF to overseas markets, Asia and Latin America, without precaution of treating it, and the product recommended for eliminating the risk. As a consequence, hemophiliacs who infused the HIV-contaminated Factor Aid tested positive for HIV and developed AIDS, and HIV across the world goes berserk. Let's blame them for unprotected sex and everything else. Folks, how does our nation allow for them to still sell drugs that we give to our children? How? GSK pleads guilty to $3 billion. Oh, in 2000, Avandia was said to be a cure for diabetes. Avandia, gone cure. We found the cure for diabetes. It's Avandia. Wait, no, it's not actually a cure. They lied about the research, and then they killed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people by causing strokes and heart attacks faster. The number one cause of death in the diabetics. But it's all lawsuits. But hey, now GSK, you can continue. What else? What other drugs you gonna come up with now for your diabetics? We gotta get them right. Meanwhile, plant-based diet and chiropractic care reverses it pretty much just about every single time. Folks, I have so many patients. The application of a plant-based diet and chiropractic care, literally every patient that has done that full bore reverses their diabetes. We can get you off your drugs. We can help you live a healthier life. We can allow you to heal yourself. If we can do that, you don't need to be placed at a risk of being given a tainted, contaminated medication or a medication that causes you to have a stroke or heart attack. Thus, you can be with your family for longer. Oh, what's the catch, Doc? The catch is, I'm sorry, your insurance company's probably not going to pay for it. That is what, but again, look at what the government, and they're literally taking and stealing money from people and saying, you have to have insurance, give us your money, and then it will charge you so much, then you can't afford the organic fruits and vegetables and everything like that. Then you become more dependent on the government and ask for government subsidies, and then it's just create more and more and more dependency. This is in United States of America. I love this country, but the reality is, We're not independent anymore. We're very, very dependent, it seems, so many of us. Neurontin, legacy in marketing through misinformation. Just read that one. In there, you'll hear a whistleblower literally talking about how the drug company literally said, I don't want to hear about that safety, C-R-A-P, crepes. Crepes? You mean those little pancakes? Those little, oh, I love those. Again, Talladega Nights, what can I say? Shake and bake. All right, so back to our regular scheduled program. I hope I make it entertaining enough that actually people enjoy listening, because, I mean, sometimes this type of stuff is kind of depressing. Just don't take an antidepressant. Feds found Pfizer too big to nail. Federal government found Pfizer too big to nail. Guess what? Pfizer company is bigger than our government. That's what that says. Look, CNN, special investigation, found that the subsidiary company takes the rap, pieces of paper, don't even go to jail. We don't even put the paper in jail. We should at least light the paperwork on fire. We'll burn them at the stake. That piece of paper is subsidiary. I know I'm probably confusing everybody. You know what a subsidiary is? So Pfizer lied about the safety of their painkiller Bextra. When they lied about it, they then took an FDA approval, which literally people in their deathbed. Like if you're serious pain, deathbed, cancer patients, okay, now it's worth the risk. Now we'll give it to those patients. Should be only under supervision in a hospital setting. That's what the FDA said. So what happens? They go, oh, FDA approves it. Well, the FDA never tracks drugs after they're on the market. And there's plenty of drugs on the market that have never actually been approved by the FDA. Oh, it's like 9 out of 10 pharmacists don't even realize they're selling drugs in their pharmacy that are not FDA-approved drugs. Yeah, get that one. That's kind of mind-boggling. And so they lied to our medical physicians. They lied to the authorities. They lie. Thousands of people die. And then what do? They lose the equivalent of 3 months of profit. And instead of suing Pfizer and finding Pfizer guilty, not a CEO, not a single person, not a single sales rep goes to jail. They sue them for 3 months of profit, and they find a subsidiary, a shell company whose only function to plead guilty in a court of law because they know they're going to lie. So they put this paperwork. See that paperwork, that company right there, they own the drug. They're the ones who sold it. Not everybody else that lied, not all the sales reps that lied, not all the CEOs that knew we were lying. You know, none of them did any crime. It was a piece of paper. We should at least take that piece of paper and light it on fire and burn it at the stake, right? That's punishment. Like, what is the difference? If I lied about the safety of something that I was selling and I killed people and I knew it was going to happen, guess what? I should go to jail. I'm okay with you getting a noose out and putting me to death. Why? Because I'm a murderer, I'm a criminal, and I don't deserve to continue to be able to do that type of thing to people, especially if you do it multiple times. I do believe in forgiveness, though. So it's tough to say that we should do that to somebody. I'm not saying that necessarily have to take somebody else's life if they do that kind of crime, but we can never allow them the opportunity to do it again. But they're selling 12 other drugs illegally. They were in court for selling other drugs illegally at the exact same time. That's 13 medications they were lying about the safety and effectiveness of and killing people for profits. And our Department of Justice says that money is so great that it's just cost of doing business is 3 months of profit. 3 months of profit isn't the cost of doing business to these people. It's the loss of people's lives. It's family members, it's friends, it's loved ones that are no longer with us here today, only because the love of money from Big Pharma was so great that they wanted $1 and were okay with the death of another. Punishment. Again, we have got to punish these drug companies. Research misconduct identified by the Food and Drug Administration, out of sight, out of mind. Read that one. Find out that FDA is right on their side. They are not pointing out to our medical physicians when the drug companies lie. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention literally saying that the CDC is nothing more than a mouthpiece for Big Pharma. Steps we could take. We'll have to do that in another episode. But you could read all 10 steps, new data on opioid prescribing. Again, all of these research articles, 10 steps the federal government should take now to reverse opioid addiction. What should they do? Non-Big Pharma answers. That's what we need to do. Studies have shown chiropractic care to literally take our military members suffering with chronic pain opioid long-term use, medical marijuana use. Here's what I want to point out. 10 milligrams of THC induced analgesic or pain-relieving effects for 7 hours, over 7 hours of observation period, comparable to 60 milligrams of codeine, an opioid. 20 milligrams of THC induced similar effects to 120 milligrams of codeine. Guess what? Cannabis is more effective at relieving pain than our opioids with less, and nobody's dying from it. Guess what we should do right now? Not prescribe codeine. Like, seriously. I want to jump up and down like, stop giving them codeine and opioids. Legalize marijuana. But the medical physician when asked, he's because he's the expert. And literally, I'm sorry, I know some people probably think this is really disrespectful. But a liar deserves no respect at that moment until they start telling the truth. That's it. A lie is simple. He says, we need to urge caution. You're literally urging our representatives to take and allow for opioids to continue to be prescribed, while you darn well know, if you're an expert, you darn well know that cannabis and medical marijuana would be far better. It may be considered the lesser of two evils sometimes, but the reality is using it properly, and even when it's not used, quote unquote, as prescribed by your doctor, guess what? People aren't dying from it. It's not leading. It hasn't led. More people have used that than were using prescription, but prescription narcotics are what drove this opioid and this death toll. Again, they examined the effects of cannabis extract preparations of THC and CBD, 177 patients with advanced cancer, uncontrolled pain despite long-term opioid use. Long-term, high risk of addiction, high risk of death from opioids. They couldn't get out of pain. They used hemp oil. Folks, why do I? And the reality is, you can't write it anywhere, used for pain, this is how we prescribe it, because you know what? FDA doesn't approve it. But you can take an FDA-approved medication that can kill you, or you could take this right here that's not FDA-approved. Which one would you like? Adding chiropractic manipulation. It's not manipulation. Never manipulate somebody. Chiropractic adjustment therapy to standard medical care. Why do they have to add it? Hey, we're giving these guys drugs. You want to join in and try and identify the cause of the problem? 70%, thank God, 70% of our guys, I wanted to put the graph on there, 70% within 2 weeks were in significantly less pain, and the majority of them without any pain under chiropractic care, meaning they didn't need any more drugs. Meanwhile, basically everybody on the drugs, it was like 17% that were free of pain after like 6 weeks. That's it. And the medical community couldn't get 20% of people out of pain with their drugs in 6 weeks. Chiropractic, almost 70%. Folks, we need a chiropractor for every single one of our soldiers, our military members, our veterans, and their families. Give me an amen. If you're a spouse, a family member, and you feel TRICARE needs to start paying for chiropractic, because they'll pay for your opioids if you want to get those. They'll pay for all your other drugs if you want those. They'll pay for your symptomatic treatment, but not for the correction of the underlying cause. So our insurance companies are part of this epidemic. They are pushing people. They're taking the financially less fortunate and literally forcing them to do what their doctors prescribe in drugs, because that's what insurance pays for. They're part of the problem. I hope all this information is literally taking people and saying we need to look at this from a different perspective. We need to stop exposure. And even if your insurance doesn't pay for it, please don't put your child on a narcotic. Don't put them on pain meds. I will help you. I know chiropractors will literally do whatever it took to help your child stay off those drugs. Find a good one. Passion flower. And this is what I told him. I'm like, passion flower helps with opioid withdrawal symptoms. Another study that I didn't get time to go through, I'll go through kratom in a later study, But they're talking about the chemistry and neuropharmacology of kratom, preliminary discussion. This was a phenomenal article, really going through in depth. It's published in 2017. Hey, that's this year. That's some latest research right there. To me, that's what we can do. We can use a less addictive, effective, pain-relieving, plant-based medicine. We can use cannabis oil for a lot of the problems that come about because of opioid addiction. We can help people get off of it with kratom. We can help people go through the withdrawal time. In 2013, literally showing, we got studies, guys, folks, chiropractic care to take care of the underlying cause, and then 2001, the passion flower study. Folks, passion flower helping people with withdrawal, a lot of the psychological issues, the mental and some of the physical health problems, the sleep problems, insomnia from withdrawal from opioids, passion flower helping them. And I'm always going to post, if I don't have it in my office that I sell it online, it will be a link through Amazon. If you love this information, you believe in what purpose that I'm serving, I want to give people the opportunity to know that there's a better way, a safer way, a more effective way. I want to give you the information so that you can make well-informed healthcare decisions. You can find the plant-based medicines or understand how chiropractic and other ways to heal your body so that you don't need drugs. I need support in this effort. So if you just use the Amazon link at the top of my website, you go through there, I get an affiliate little chip, little pennies, 6%. I don't get big money like Big Pharma. Little bits, doesn't cost you anything else. You know, I always try and put links to the different supplements and things like that I would highly recommend. We'll get our hemp oil, full spectrum hemp oil with testing, folks, with testing. I'm watching a lot of these CBD products out there that I love the industry. I want people to do it, and I want farmers to be able to provide their communities with this stuff. You know, but I want to make sure that we're getting some of the best plant-based medicine to the people who need it most. So I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. I hope you will just share this truth because we need to save lives and we need to prevent more lives from being lost. I want to see if we can put a solid effort. Remember those numbers already because of Big Pharma. 600,000, just opioids, 600,000 people are dead already, and 180,000 are yet to come if they get their way. We need to call our representatives. But if Michael Sparks is right and we're not going to change it through legislation because Big Pharma has got their money in the pockets of our legislators, then guess what? We need to fight it grassroots in our community and do what we can as individuals. If we get healthy, if we stay healthy, if we never need a drug, if we never pay for a medication at a pharmacy, I don't purchase anything at a pharmacy. Just never will. Now, I know a good pharmacist actually coaches, they'll actually sit down with his clients that come in and want to fill their prescriptions, sit down and coach them on nutrition, give them supplements. So there's some good pharmacists out there as well. So I'm not saying there's bad people in every single place like that. But the reality is I don't want a cent of my money going to Big Pharma. So I'm going to do what I can to stay healthy well so I'll never, ever, ever need or use a drug. And I hope you'll join me in that effort to the best of your ability. And I won't judge if you need a drug now and then or you go that route, but I'm going to be begging and pleading for you to let me help you so that you don't need to go that route. All right, folks, share the truth. Don't just like it because that's the only way that we're not going to see 180,000 because legislators aren't going to change it, it looks like. It's going to be us by sharing the truth. Share the truth. Don't just like it. That's the only way we save lives. I'm the Wild Doc. Hey, everybody, I'm the Wild Doc, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hop on over to thewilddoc.com. Subscribe there for our newsletter and email campaign. Join in the conversation on Facebook, and let's transform the world by unleashing the power of natural healing.